With President Obama and his administration searching for answers to the economic crisis, the Jobs Summit got underway yesterday in Washington, D.C. It was a gathering of 130 corporate executives, economists, small business owners, and union leaders focused on ideas to create jobs as soon as possible. And some are already complaining they've been excluded from the process and call it just a PR stunt. President of the Chamber of Commerce wasn't invited. Joe Krier, president of Krier Wealth Management, here to explain why he thinks something positive will come out of it. So to those who say this was just a dog and pony show, to kind of ease the blow of today's money numbers that are coming out, the unemployment numbers, which are expected to be higher today, what's your response?
Yeah, if you weren't invited, I guess you would feel a little dissed, you know. So that's the group that's complaining. The biggest group that's complaining is the importers. You know, in the U.S. with the weak dollar, it's helping anybody who's shipping things overseas because they're buying our goods a little bit cheaper overseas than ever. And the feds, whether they say it or not, they are in support of that. So they can't really go and support importers because it would contradict too much of their other policy.
Well, was this just political circus because the numbers expected to be worse today?
There's a lot of speculation about that. You know, this number that comes out at 10:30 every first Friday of the month now for the next 6 months or so, that's going to be like a bad day in Washington because people want to see the unemployment rate come down, and it's just not going to happen right away. It never does. Even if this recession is completely over, typically it's a 3 to 6 month lag before employment starts to pick up again.
I was going to say, I just read an article in the Washington Post, and the general thinking is it's going to be several months at the very least before it turns around. But Mr. Obama's between the proverbial rock and a hard place. I mean, do you create jobs or do you reduce the deficit?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, and it's not so easy to just go out there and push a button and create jobs. And he did say they would entertain any demonstrable idea yesterday, but the number of ideas is really few and far between. Some of the spending that they're doing with the TARP money, it's creating jobs, but the complaint is, hey, they're temporary jobs or they're part-time jobs, and that's not what's going to get it done. What'll get it done is the economy actually finding a bottom, turning the corner, and starting to pick up again.
And what will also get it done is when the banks finally start lending money again. So that brings us to this equation about how things are going to pan out, and it's going to create, well, a cycle.
Yes. Yeah, and the graphic was up there a second ago. If employment picks up, people have more money to spend. If they're spending money, they're more confident. If they're confident, they're spending even more money, and then you get into recovery. One of the areas that we think there's going to be some incentive for is to get small businesses spending money again. And if they give guys like me a tax break for buying a new copy machine or whatever, it does tend to help get the wheels of the economy going. And we expect to hear that from out of this summit perhaps as early as next Tuesday.
You say we also need to see focused stimulus spending.
Yeah, and you know, there's, like I mentioned a minute ago, some of these projects that were the shovel-ready projects, well, it's a one-shot and done. Some people are looking for things that perhaps are long-term highway projects, or let's get, you know, some east-west corridors going. Spending on infrastructure is a big thing.
Well, let me ask you about that, because the president kind of got into a bit of a debate about the whole infrastructure spending. He doesn't think that rebuilding roads is the answer, and people said, well, look to China. I mean, they've totally rebuilt their infrastructure, and he said, well, China's issue is they don't have to wrestle with democracy. We do.
Yeah, and you know, that debate, that's a tough one to go to, and infrastructure, a lot of people, and I even said it a minute ago, think about roads, but if we're talking about fiber optic networks, information technology, that's a whole different animal. Rebuilding the electric grid in the U.S., there are some projects that don't necessarily constitute rolling cars down the highway that I think could be a long-term positive and make us more productive as a workforce.
In 15 seconds, because that's what we've got left, what do we do in the meantime?
Tough question. You know, we got to ride it out. We got to keep our eyes open. I think the average unemployed person needs to consider retraining themselves rather than expecting to get hired in the same job they were in. Big thing right there. Just be patient, look for new skills, and hopefully it'll work out.
Stat I saw this morning was that if there's a job out there, there are 6 people who want it as badly as you do, so only 1 in 6 get it. Joe Krier, Wealth Management, thanks very much for being here. Appreciate it.